All right, everybody, welcome in. I am Benjamin Parker. We have so much to get to tonight. We are talking about the AFC North. This is the way too early version. We are going to be covering the Ravens, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Browns. We've got three writers from Phantom Sports with us tonight. This is kind of a conjunction video between sports and money. So if you're watching us on the Sports and Money platform, welcome in. If you're watching on the Phantom Sports platform, welcome in. We have three of our experts with us tonight, starting with Robertson Vire. Robertson, how are you, man?
Good. How are you doing today, Ben?
Excellent. Robertson specifically covers the Commanders, but tonight he'll be covering some other teams for us. Simon Short is up next. Simon, welcome in, buddy.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks again for having us, Ben.
Excellent. And Simon, of course, covers the Steelers in depth in more than one area. He'll be covering the Steelers for us tonight specifically. And last but not least, Anthony Joe Baggy. Anthony, welcome in, buddy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Anthony will be covering the Bengals for us as well. So here's what we're going to do for those of you jumping in on board with us tonight. We're going to start with each person just kind of giving a general direction of the franchise. We'll spend like 1 minute on that. Then we'll curl back around and do a much meatier portion of the 2022 season looking ahead. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with where we think the division standings might be heading this year. There's a lot to talk about. Let's jump right in. Anthony, I'm going to start off with you, man. The Cincinnati Bengals. Give us just a direction coming off that Super Bowl of the state of the franchise.
State of the franchise for me is this changes their franchise in a whole. You know, we looked at them as a team that is not rich, not gonna spend the money, not going to pay guys to come to Cincinnati. So they're just going to be competitive, but not overly competitive. But for them to now have a guy in Joe Burrow to be able to be like, listen, I'm a star in my own way. I'm going to bring guys here. We're going to change this organization. We're going to change the culture. Instead of having what it was, we're going to change it into a winning culture. I feel like the Bengals now are looked at as a serious contender moving forward for the next couple of years, as long as Joe Burrow is there. Because before that, we looked at them as like, you know, they're bad, but I take them as, you know, Super Bowl contenders. They're in the Chiefs, Bills category of they're going to be contenders every year. That's kind of how I look at the franchise right now for the Cincinnati Bengals.
It's amazing to see what a year can do for a franchise. You go back to a year ago at this time, I think everybody knew the Bengals had some good pieces, but everybody was kind of looking at that offensive line and going, I don't see it. And now fast forward a year, and you know people are starting to throw Super Bowl titles at Joe Burrow before he actually ever wins one. So amazing what a year can do. Robertson, you've got the Ravens tonight. Give us the lowdown on the Ravens state of the franchise.
So 2021 was the first time since 2007 that they finished fourth in the division, which is kind of crazy to think about since they had an 8-9 record. That just shows how strong the division was. But the last time they did that, Brian Billick was the coach. And that was like I said, 2007. So this year they're just going to be looking to, you know, get Lamar healthy, get him back on track, and you know, get things back on track for the team. You know, for the Ravens, there always seems to be in the postseason. So yeah, they're just going to be looking to get back on track here, get Lamar healthy, you know, get everything, the offense reset, get the defense better, because they were disappointing last year. I won't say they were abysmal, but they were disappointing. And they're going to go get back to the postseason.
The Ravens always seem to play a little angry, a little bit with the chip on their shoulder. I think that's going to be, you know, doubled this year, because I think they knew how good last year could have possibly been had it not been for just being snake bit by injuries, especially early in the season, but it just never did stop. They never really could catch their breath. So I think the Ravens are going to come in angry as usual. Simon, let's talk about your team, the Steelers, for just a minute, man. It's big time transition, but give us the lowdown.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really interesting. The first time in, 17, 18 years here that number 7 isn't lining up under center. So it's going to be a weird adjustment, but I think it's really going to come down to actually the defensive side of the ball more than anything. This team was a historically bad run defense last year, gave it the most rushing yards in the NFL. And even worse than that, I mean, it was literally the worst run defense in Pittsburgh Steeler history. And that's just not the way Pittsburgh wants to do things. When the Rooneys are still owning this team, the motto, the mantra every year is going to be run the ball and stop the run. So that's going to have to be what they, adjust first. They did that by upgrading their linebacker group, hopefully having a healthier defensive line and some other things we'll get into. But that's where it's going to start. And if this team is going to have success this year, that's the number one thing that has to happen. Number two is whoever that starting quarterback is going to have to at least be an average NFL quarterback. So we'll just have to wait and see.
A brand new day in Pittsburgh, and I'm sure Pittsburgh fans are a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous to see what the next 2 or 3 years are going to look like. I think they're going to be fine, but a lot depends on that quarterback spot. My team will be the Browns tonight. We'll just hit them for a second here, and we'll jump in. Cleveland, of course, with questions all over the place. It could not get more awkward than it is right now with the current Baker Mayfield situation. Then you have, many multiples of more complications with the Deshaun Watson situation, some on the field, some off. I think the lines aren't the lines aren't even showing right now in a lot of spots for the Cleveland Browns. There's so much up in the air. So we'll talk more about them in a little bit. But Cleveland certainly got a lot of talent. Looks like they can compete. How good they can be this year versus how good they might be over the next 3 to 5 years might be two different questions. But certainly Cleveland, I think, has every right to be excited about this season. But again, a lot of nervousness there as well. All right, Robertson, I'm going to bounce it back to you now for the Ravens and talk specifically about the 2022 season. Let me start off with the line. And I'm pulling this off of DraftKings just a day or two ago. Started out at 9.5 wins that DraftKings at the time thought that the Ravens could get. What do you think about that number? Are you taking the over? Are you taking the under? I know it's a little bit tricky now because we have 17 games instead of 16, so we're kind of allowing for that a little bit. But start off with that number and then bounce us off of that.
So 9.5 sounds low to me. No, I think it's right. I can see where they got the 9.5 from, just because we don't know how Lamar is going to be when he comes back. Again, we don't know how improved the defense is going to be. The offense, they traded Hollywood Brown. So there's a question about where the offense is going to get their production from, other than like outside of the run game, which we know the run game is very good in Baltimore. But this is a passing league. Emphasis has been placed on wide receivers, as we've seen this offseason. And their number one receiver is Rashad Bateman, which, he was the number one receiver last year, but we don't really know if he can be a true number one receiver yet. He hasn't proven that yet. So 9.5 sounds about right. I haven't over whether my prediction, which you'll find out soon, is correct, will remain to be seen. But I think it's about right. I think it's a little low, but I can see why they have it at 9.5 there.
Robertson, there's so much we can talk about with the Ravens. We don't have time for all of it, but I do want to ask you personally about Lamar Jackson. Let's assume we get a healthy version of Lamar Jackson. Let's assume also that he is a little bit inconsistent at times, but at other times is going to look like an MVP. Just how good do you think the Ravens could be at their ceiling end? Just how good could this team be? Are we looking at a legit Super Bowl team, or are we looking at a team that's more like in the top 8, top 10?
I think Lamar will carry this team, but it has to be in conjunction with the defense. The run game. The run game is so important to Lamar's game that you're not going to be able to run the ball as often as they want to if the defense isn't performing the way they should be performing. I mean, the pass rush needs a little work. The secondary definitely needs some work, which is surprising given Marlon Humphreys and Marcus Peters. But again, they were dealing with injuries last year. They did add Kyle Hamilton in the draft. So the defense has improved, I think, on paper. But, we won't know that until we get on the field, which it's a big thing, just given the way that Lamar plays, given the way the offense is tailored around him, that the defense has to play well. So, yes, I believe Lamar, this can be a 14-win team. It can be, and Lamar is playing at his peak, but it really depends that if the defense can play in conjunction with Lamar and to fit their style.
The Ravens, I don't remember the exact years, but somewhere between 2019, 2020, and 21, they tried to draft a wide receiver. It just didn't really pan out for them. And I know this isn't really the case. I'm a little bit tongue-in-cheek here, but it almost feels like the Ravens have given up on trying to get wide receivers, and they're like, the heck with it. we'll line up in big formation every time. We'll split out our tight ends. We'll throw the ball to the fullback. We'll let Lamar Jackson run around and do his thing. We'll just come up with the biggest, nastiest offense we can find. How successful can that be if they're trending in that direction in a league that you just mentioned truthfully is a complete passing league these days? How successful could that be?
Like I said, it really depends on the defense. But if just say the defense is similar to last year, there definitely is a cap on this team and this offense because you need to be able to pass the ball. And Lamar he's not a bad passer, but he's definitely not top tier. He has the top tier arm strength, but like you said, Ben, the accuracy is inconsistent, and he relies on his legs too much, which inevitably gets him injured. You have to question outside of Rashad Bateman where they're getting the production from. There's Duvernay, and there's what is his name? I'm sorry, Ravens fans. I'm sorry, I can't get his name right. I just can't pronounce it right. But you know who I'm talking about. Like, can those two guys make up for Hollywood Brown's absence? Like, since they traded him away, it's going to be hard. I know they have Mark Andrews, but is it enough in today's game? Is really the big question.
I'm gonna love watching the Ravens this year because they do seem to be doing it on offense a different way than everybody else is doing. All right, we'll come back to the Ravens a little bit later on. Simon, let's talk about the Steelers. This is right up your alley. You cover them all over the place, both in written form and video form. The over-under for the Steelers from DraftKings, and this is a few days old, so of course this number will fluctuate all through the offseason. But let's do an over-under right now. It's 7.5 for the Steelers. So for this upcoming season, Simon, would you take the over on that or the under at 7.5 wins?
Yeah, I'm definitely taking the over on that, and I feel like we're all just going to end up saying over, and that's not necessarily obviously very good, but I'm going to say over. I mean, this team was 9-7-1 last year with all the flaws they had, all of the herky jerkiness of their offseason. I mean, you think back to this team cut their cornerback one during free agency last year, Steven Nelson. This team lost their number one slot corner, Mike Hilton, during free agency. They went into the offseason thinking David DeCastro was going to be back for his 10th season as their starting right guard, and he ended up essentially retiring injured instead. So there's a lot of herky jerkiness to this team last year. Ben was obviously the kind of quarterback that you are when you're that age and you've taken that many hits last year, not really utilizing the middle of the field, not going under center, not running play action. With all of that, this team still found a way to go 9-7-1, and it really should have been 10-7. That Mason Rudolph Detroit Lions tie game still haunts me to this day. But you now look at everything else that they've done this season. Yes, the change in quarterback is going to be big in terms of the long term, what era we're in with this franchise. And I think Ben still made a lot of plays that only Hall of Fame quarterbacks make last year. There was a lot of really key conversions on money downs. There was a lot of nice completions on in tight windows. Throws that a rookie like Kenny Pickett or a journeyman like Mitch Trubisky are not going to make. That is for sure. But at the same time, you're going to be able to run a much more modern NFL offense with either of these quarterbacks than you were with Big Ben. And everything else about this team screams better than it was last year. The defensive line is, in theory, healthier than it was last year, meaning Tyson Alualu and hopefully Stephon Tuitt back. This defensive back group not only added external talent in Levi Wallace, but they also retained in DeMonte Casey, but they also retained Terrell Edmonds and Ahkello Witherspoon, two big pieces from last year. They upgraded the offensive line with James Daniels and Mason Cole, who should both be better than the guy that they're replacing last year. Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle should be better now, expecting to be the starting left tackle than last year, where he was supposed to be the number 4 tackle, and now he's all of a sudden your starting blindside protector. Inside linebacker should be much better, Miles Jack over Joe Schobert. On and on the list goes. Everything about this team screams that they have improved from where they were last year. Isn't necessarily good enough to win the North, be in the playoffs, be in Super Bowl contention. And we'll see. I have my doubts, but in terms of just improving on last year, absolutely. And then just the idea of being able to build a modern NFL offense, as we've been saying, it is a passing league. It is an offensive league. So while I want to, nerd out over all those other things, at the end of the day, they're going to be able to run a more modern NFL system offensively, and that's going to be huge. So when it comes to 7.5, yeah, slam the over for sure. I have this team as 10-7, so anywhere between there, and you're gonna hit on that bet.
What that leads me to my next question, and that is this: where would you place the percentages at, knowing how tough the AFC is this year, knowing specifically how tough the AFC North is, which we really haven't talked a lot about. Everybody's kind of talking about, the AFC West, which no doubt they've all improved, but there's no easy games in the AFC North either. Like every game, every week is going to be a slugfest. So where would you place the percentages on the Steelers, A, having a winning season, and B, actually making it in the playoffs through a very tough schedule, really?
So I'm really confident that they'll have at least a winning record, and not just for the annoying reason that, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record. But again, just if you take last year's team, plug in what they did this offseason, and then, kind of project it forward, especially because the schedule is actually a little more favorable for Pittsburgh this year than it was last year. There's just no reason this team should backslide unless you get into the season and Kenny Pickett and or Mitch Trubisky are just so much worse than this team anticipated. But there's no reason this team should be any worse. When it comes to competing for the division crown, I think that's still 100% in reality. I mean, the Bengals had a great postseason last year, but they still just went 10-7 to win the division. I would not be surprised if 10-7 won this division again. And I would not be surprised if we had 3 or even all 4 teams kind of right in there up until the last week when they all kind of play each other again. So chances for a winning record, 90%. Chances to win the division among 3 other teams, I'll call it 50%. Super Bowl or conference contention, that's like 5-10. I mean, you never know what you get into the postseason, but this team isn't built for that kind of high level contention just yet. But you never know. But this team should absolutely be competing for the AFC North and in the playoffs.
Simon, we'll hear back from you again at the end when we're talking about the actual division order. Anthony, it's your turn, man. Let's talk about the Bengals for a little bit. The over-under for DraftKings, the last one that I had is 10. So, Anthony, what do you think about that number? Over 10 wins, under 10 wins? And then tell us a little bit more about the Bengals this year.
I'd go over. I truly feel the Bengals could have about a 13 or 14 win season. They're bringing back a lot of the same team, but also getting better. Burrow last year played first full season. Now he's going to have a real off season where he's able to work out, not have to rehab, and he's able to just get back to a normal off season that a regular quarterback is able to do. Coming off of the Super Bowl loss, that's going to motivate him even more. Burrow's the type of guy that's going to make this loss different. He's going to make sure, okay, we suffered this loss, but we got somewhere. We're going to celebrate it for the amount of time we can. Well, the work starts now. We have to get back there because they won the division. They beat the Ravens four times last year, smoked them. The Bengals have a target on their back now. So they want to make sure, Burrow wants to make sure that they can continue the success and build this culture to winning and not be a 1 year, oh, we made the Super Bowl 1 year, we're not going to make the playoffs the next. They're going to be back there. For me, 10 wins, I think that's the lowest. I think that's the lowest they're going to get. I truly feel like they could win about 14. I think they could win the AFC, take the AFC number 1 seed because they added more pieces to help Burrow with the offensive line. And that was really the piece that they were missing was the offensive line. Now you're adding an offensive line. You signed a stud offensive lineman in La'el Collins. That's only going to help you. So I truly feel like the Bengals are going to be even more dangerous this year than they were last year.
I would never have thought until last season when Cincinnati proved me wrong that a team with an offensive line that bad could march all the way into the Super Bowl and actually had a legit chance to win that thing. I would have thought, okay, you can have a winning season, you can win the division, maybe you get all the way to the AFC title game or something. But Cincinnati just marched right through. But needless to say, they didn't want to keep exposing Burrow to that. So you mentioned the adjustments to the offensive line. They made a few adjustments to the defense. But talk about Cincinnati moving forward. How excited is the city? How excited would you be if you were a Bengals fan? I know you're not, but how excited would you be just to know, hey, we got Burrow and we made improvements coming off of a Super Bowl appearance?
I'm not a Bengals fan, but they made me turn into one sort of last year. It made me want to watch their games for the sake that, their offense was electric. Jamar Chase went off. T. Higgins showed up. Tyler Boyd showed off. Joe Mixon. This offense, I believe, is the best offense in the AFC. They're going to get even better with an offensive line. And we can always go back and say, oh, well, Burrow did it without an offensive line. They said before they drafted Jamar Chase, they need to go offensive line. They're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl without getting an offensive line. Obviously, Burrow proved me wrong. But if you went into this season without an offensive line, or at least adding some pieces, they ain't even making the playoffs. But grabbing an offensive lineman now, pretty damn good offensive lineman, you're helping your case even more. If I'm a Bengals fan, if I'm in the city of Cincinnati, you got something to cheer for. All the other sports teams in Cincinnati, they're not doing well. The Bengals are right now the team that the city wants to win. They're going to put all their money into Cincinnati Bengals, and they're going to give it everything. They're going to show up to the games. They're going to spend their hard-earned money for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think the Bengals will prove it. It's been such a long time that Cincinnati has had something to root for. For them to have it now after getting to the Super Bowl, I think the Bengals they have everyone in Cincinnati rooting for them.
Tons of excitement. I'm sure Cincinnati is just frothing at the mouth to get back to it this year. Let's talk about the Cleveland Browns for just a second. We're not going to hit them super hard. That's my team. Let me set the table for them really quickly. So the Cleveland Browns, most of you already know, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, Baker Mayfield is still on the team. It's super awkward there. It continues to be awkward. We'll see how long they actually keep him. I'm going to ask all you guys a question here in a second. A lot of these sites, the lines, don't even want to produce an over-under on the Browns right now. So I'm going to ask you guys, without any qualifications, to just give me an over-under number that you would be comfortable at, and we'll hit that in just a second. And then I'll get you guys to go back through, and we'll get the over-under on how much time each quarterback is going to spend playing this year. Deshaun Watson, of course, comes in. He's looking at a very possible suspension. We'll talk about how long that'll be in just a minute. But for me, the Cleveland Browns, if I'm putting the over-under here, I'm going to set it somewhere around 8 wins, 8.5. I think that's a comfortable number for me. So, Robertson, what do you think would be a comfortable number for the Browns for you?
Similar to you, just a little less, just because of the whole Baker Mayfield aspect of it. You don't know if he's going to play, and if he does, he can win a few games on talent alone, because the Browns are talented, but you don't know if he's going to give it his all. You don't know how committed he's going to be if he even plays. Is he that petty to where he wouldn't play or get paid? We don't know. We don't know yet. This is kind of a very strange situation. Takes you back to almost a classic quarterback battles. One quarterback that started for the year before feels slighted by the organization bringing in a new guy, the new shiny toy. So I have it around 7.5 wins. I feel comfortable. I would feel comfortable at that.
All right, Simon, what about you? If I set it at 8.5 wins, would you drop it lower than that? Would you set it higher based on what we know at this point about Mayfield and Watson?
Can I cheat and put it up to 12 and then feel comfortable taking the under and then I win?
No,
are you saying I
can't do that?
All right, I have to be able to take over. So because I'm so risk averse and cheap, right?
Right.
This is a great question for me. I'm envisioning worst case scenario. So if let's say there's no Deshaun Watson at all, and let's say who's the next quarterback. I don't think Baker Mayfield plays another down for the Browns. So now I'm going to the next guy up, and that's Jacoby Brissett. So I'm taking this team that has a good offensive line, good running game. Just added Amari Cooper to a wide receiver room that was really starved for talent. Lost Austin Hooper, but he wasn't what they really expected when he got there. And then average defense highlighted by Myles Garrett, right? So that's the team I'm talking about. I am still way more on the side of Robertson, where I'm talking 7 wins. So if I had to set one, I'm probably setting it at. I might even set it at 6.5, because I think this team went 8-9 last year, and if I'm, going between Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson, Brissett is worse than Baker Mayfield. So if I'm thinking worst case scenario and thinking that's my starter for, let's say, 8, 10, 12, or even 17 games, then I'm going to set it at 6.5, where I think this team is maybe a 7-win team.
We saw some of that last year when Mayfield missed a couple of games. Anthony, what about you? If I set the over-under at 8.5, Robertson and Simon both have it about 7.5. Where are you comfortable at with the over-under for the Browns this year?
For me, my over and under is 5. The reason why I'm going with 5 is you don't have a quarterback taking Baker and Deshaun out of it. Made the playoffs. That's at least top 12 quarterback in your own conference. Baker, for me, is the best quarterback that I would have gone with. Obviously getting Deshaun, you're taking a big risk. You don't know. You're giving him $280 million for what? You don't know if he's going to even play this year. You also, not only did you give him a big contract, you cost your other quarterback who brought you from not winning any games to immediately winning a playoff game against your division rival, getting wins, changing your whole organization. And now you screw him so bad. He's not even, I swear, I think he doesn't play another down also. If I'm Baker, I wouldn't want to play another down. They basically, it's like a relationship. They're dating you, but they're going to find someone new. Once they find that someone new, they're going to toss you to the curb. You got to look at your best case scenario. You don't want to take a snap and then get hurt, because guess what? The Browns don't care. They're going to be like, well, we got our guy. Whatever happened to you, happened to you. But if you're going to have Jacoby Brissett be your starting quarterback, what has Jacoby Brissett done in the NFL that makes you say, oh, they'll compete with the Bengals, they're going to compete with the Steelers, they're going to compete with the Ravens? I think they'll really only win 2 games out of their own division with Jacoby Brissett. That's to the end where the Bengals are early. But it doesn't matter. The Browns, I feel, will go back to where they were, and that's losing. You didn't really prepare yourself for Sean possibly getting suspended. There's nothing that says to me the Browns are competitive right now. There's nothing that says he's lost Jarvis Landry. Who's filling that hole? Amari Cooper? Cool. But who's throwing Amari Cooper the ball? The Browns have a lot of questions for me, and it all starts with the quarterback position. So I'm going with 5.
You guys have made me move my line that I was going to have on Deshaun Watson. I was going to set it at 6, and I was even going to ask the Baker Mayfield question, but you guys have pretty much already answered that y'all don't think Mayfield's even going to be playing it down again. So let me set the Deshaun Watson number of games played this year at 8. Over, under 8. No need to elaborate. Just give me an over or an under. Simon, start with you. Over, under Deshaun Watson games played this year, 8.
Because I have a pessimistic view of how this situation will be handled, I'll say he plays more than 8 games.
All right, so he plays more than 8 games. Robertson, over, under 8 games Deshaun Watson this season.
I'm going to say push.
You got to pick one. I'm sorry. No pushes.
No push? Oh, dang. I'll say over. Over. All
right, well, you guys are surprising me, actually. Anthony, over, under 8 games Deshaun Watson this season.
I'm gonna go under. I think he'll get suspended about 8 to 10 games. By that time, you're gonna be out of the mix for the playoffs in my eyes. I think he only plays about 5 to 6 games this year. just because of everything. Like, we don't even know what they're investigating on him right now. We don't even know what's going on with Deshaun. So I think we're not going to know a suspension till near week 1. So I think he misses majority of the season.
All right, fair enough. Now let's wrap it up with the order, predicted order of the division. Again, this is way too early. We know it. There's a lot of moving pieces still, especially for the Browns, but for the entire division. So we may do this again right before the season starts. But in our way too early predictions, Simon, I'm going to start with you. You don't have to give me records if you don't want to, but just give me your predicted order of finish for these 4 teams.
I would give you predicted record, but then I'd have to do a record for every team in the NFL before we had hopped on this to get the math right, and I wasn't doing that tonight. So I'm going to go Bengals, Steelers, Ravens, Browns.
Bengals, Steelers, Ravens, Browns. Is that correct?
That is it.
All right. For Simon, Bengals, Steelers, Ravens, and Browns. Robertson, what's your predicted order of finish?
Okay, so this kind of like just going back to what we just talked about. This is contingent on Deshaun Watson playing at least 9 games, if not more. So I have the Ravens first place, second place Cleveland. That's if Deshaun Watson plays more than 9-10 games. Then I have Cincy and Pittsburgh.
All right. So you said the Ravens first, the Browns second. Who in third?
Cincinnati.
Cincinnati in third. Okay. Anthony, what's your predicted order of finish for these 4 teams?
I'm not going to give you records. I'm going to give you an explanation, though. I got the Bengals at 1. Won the division last year. They got even better. I think they steamroll again. I think they win the division. Second, I got the Steelers. I said it, and I'm a Steelers fan. They got better this year. Adding a quarterback that can run and throw, that helps you out. You have a pretty good wide receiving core. You got Najee Harris. You got a good defense in TJ Watt and then Minka and then Hayward. I'm going to go, split 1 game with Baltimore. So that's why I have the Steelers ahead of Baltimore. And then I got Baltimore at 3. I don't know what Lamar we're going to get. Are we going to get the 2019 Lamar that's an MVP or the guy that we got last year? Because if you look at it, Lamar and Tyler Huntley have the same percentage as Lamar's MVP season. So that's a concern for me. And then obviously I have the Browns at 4, We don't there's just a question mark. They're at 4.
All right, you guys are allowed to boo me but not hate me on this, okay? I've got the Steelers. I've got the Steelers bringing up the rear this year in this division. I don't think they get pushed around, but I do think they'll be pulling up the rear in this division. I've got the Browns checking in as the 3rd team myself. I think they're going to struggle all year no matter who's at quarterback. I think even if Watson is playing quarterback, I think they're going to struggle because he missed all of last year. It's going to take him some time to get back up and running again. I have the Ravens and the Bengals basically in a tie for the division, but push comes to shove, give me the Bengals just by a hair over the Ravens. So Bengals first, Ravens second, Steelers 4th, Browns 3rd. All right, this is it. Thank you so much for being with us. We're going to be doing this with all the divisions this year. You can catch these guys' work, written work on Phantom Sports. You can catch some of their video work on Phantom Sports and also on Sports and Money. So however you're watching, however you're listening, thank you so much for being with us. We're going to do this with all the divisions all through the entire off season. We'll probably do it again before the season starts as well. So thank you so much for being with us tonight. Have a great one. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, Ben.
Awkward pause.